The power went out at 1:40 in the morning. You know, because that is what the blinking clock on the stove said when you came down at dawn. The storm took a line down somewhere 2 counties over, and the company says 3 days, maybe 4. And right now, out in your garage, there is a chest freezer with $300–400 of meat inside it, and it is dying. The steaks you bought on sale, the half a hog you split with your brother-in-law, the deer from last season, all of it softening, weeping pink water onto the concrete 1 hour at a time, while you stand there with the lid open doing the math. And here is the part most folks never think about. Even when the power stays on, that freezer is humming. Day and night, summer and winter, that hum is a meter spinning, and every bite of meat you own is a hostage to a wire that runs back to a company that bills you monthly for the privilege of your own groceries not rotting. Now I want you to sit with this. 140 years ago, crews of men drove cattle 3 months across open country in the heat of summer, with no ice within 1,000 miles, and they ate meat every single day of that drive. Good meat that rode in a wagon box through July. And the thing that kept that meat is a box of plain salt that costs about $4 at any grocery store today, plus sunlight and dry air, which cost nothing at all and never have. My name is Wyatt Walker. I am 56 years old, and I have been a working cowboy my whole life, and so was my father and his father and his father and his father before that. 5 generations of walkers horseback. My great-great-grandfather rode north out of Texas on the very drives I just told you about, 3 months on the trail in the summer of 1882, and every pound of meat that fed him was kept the way I am about to show you. What I know came down that line, hand to hand, father to son, from the wagon box to my kitchen, and the finer points were drilled into me when I was a young hand by a ranch cook everybody just called Cookie, who fed 12 hungry men out of 1 box for a whole season and never lost a pound of it to rot. Today I am going to show you the 3 ways my family kept meat for 5 generations, the way for days, the way for weeks, and the way for months, because those are 3 different jobs and I will not blur them together the way the title of a video does. I am going to give you exact steps, exact prices, and the one modern improvement I insist you add because honest is better than impressive, and I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. And at the end I am going to show you a price tag in the store that ought to make you a little angry once you understand it. Stay with me. Let me start with what rot actually is, because once you see it plain, the rest of this makes simple sense. Meat does not spoil on its own. Meat is spoiled by little living things too small to see that land on it and eat it and multiply. And those little spoilers have one weakness, the same weakness as every living thing on a dry ranch. They have to have water. No water, no rot. It is that simple, and you have seen the proof your whole life without knowing it. A fresh cowhide left in the sun will stink and rot in 3 days. That same hide, scraped and dried into rawhide, will last 50 years hanging in a barn. Same animal, same hide, the only difference is the water. So there are 3 doors you can take. You can pull the water out of the meat entirely, and that is drying. You can tie the water up with salt so the spoilers cannot drink it, and that is curing. Or you can slow the whole clock down with cold, and that is what your refrigerator does. Now notice something. The fridge only does the 3rd one, the weakest one, the one that quits the moment the wire does, and it is the only one of the 3 that comes with a monthly bill. 4 generations of walkers use the other 2 doors, the strong ones, the free ones, and that is what I am going to teach you. Here is what you need, and the whole list is under $15 if you own an oven and a crate. You need lean beef, a round roast or eye of round, the cheap dense cuts, 3 or 4 pounds to start. You need plain pure salt, and hear me close on this because this is the part folks get wrong at the store. You want canning and pickling salt, or a pure kosher salt, a box that says salt and nothing else, $3 or $4. You do not want iodized table salt. The iodine and the anti-caking powders they add will turn your cure bitter and cloudy and work against you. Plain salt, nothing added. And one hard warning while we are standing in that aisle, because I will not skip it. There is a thing called pink curing salt, sometimes called Prague powder, that serious curers use in tiny measured pinches. It is dyed pink on purpose because in quantity it is poison, and it is not the same thing as pink Himalayan rock salt, no matter what the color tells your eye. The methods I am teaching you today do not need it, so leave it on the shelf until you have learned more, and if you ever do buy it, keep it labeled and high away from children. Plain pure salt is the whole chemistry today, the same as it was in 1882. Beyond that, you want black pepper, a sharp knife, a baking rack, some glass jars with lids, a clean cotton sack or pillowcase, and for the third method, a wooden crate, a piece of window screen, a burlap or canvas sack, and a shallow pan. That is everything. Now the first method, the one for weeks, the one that rode in a saddlebag, and that is dried beef, what everybody now calls jerky. Take your round roast and trim it. Every speck of fat comes off, every white vein, every cap, and I mean every speck, because here is the rule my father made me say back to him before he would let me touch the knife. Lean meat dries, fat does not dry. Fat goes rancid, and one streak of it will turn a whole jar. Trim it clean. Then slice it about 1/4 of an inch thick with the grain for a chewy old-style jerky that lasts, and the slicing goes easier if the meat is good and cold and firm. Salt every slice on both sides, heavier than feels polite. Dust it with black pepper, and let it sit an hour while the salt pulls moisture to the surface and starts its work. Now here is where I part ways with the men I come from, and I will tell you why straight. My grandfather and his father laid the strips on the wagon sheet or hung them on the fence wire and let the sun and the dry wind do it, and in the high dry country that worked, and most men were fine and some men were not. You have something they did not have, and that is an oven with a number on the dial, and I insist you use it. Lay your strips on a rack, set the oven to its lowest setting, right around 160 to 170 degrees, crack the door with a wooden spoon so the moisture can escape, and let them ride 4 to 6 hours. That low steady heat does 2 jobs at once. It dries the meat and it kills the spoilers outright, which the sun alone never promised. The strip is done when it bends and cracks like a green branch but does not snap clean, and when there is no wet shine anywhere on it. If you want belt and suspenders, and I do, give the finished strips 10 minutes at 2075 before they cool. Then let them cool all the way, jar them with a tight lid, and set the jar somewhere cool and dark. Done right and kept dry, that jar is good for weeks on a shelf, months if you keep it cold. And I want you to be honest with yourself the way I am being honest with you. 3 pounds of fresh beef becomes about 1 pound of dried. Remember that number, 3 into 1, because it is going to matter at the end of this video. The second method is the one for months, the one that rode in the wagon box under my great-great-grandfather's boot heels, and that is the salt crock, what the old bills of lading called salt pork and salt beef. The crock in my pantry was my grandmother's and her mother's before her, and the method has not changed one step in all that time because it never needed to. You take a stoneware crock or a clean food-grade bucket, you pour a solid layer of plain salt across the bottom. You take pieces of pork belly or beef brisket, whole solid pieces, and you rub salt hard into every face of every piece like you are trying to rub it through the meat. You lay the pieces in so no 2 pieces touch, and you bury them completely, every piece drowned in salt, with more salt between every layer and a final layer over the top so you cannot see meat at all. Set a clean plate and a weight on top, put the lid on and carry it to the coolest spot you own, a cellar, a north pantry, the floor of a closet on the shaded side of the house. The salt pulls the water out of the meat and ties up what is left so tight that nothing can live in it, and that is how barrels of it cross deserts in summer. Check it once a week. If the salt goes wet and slushy, pour it off and repack with fresh $4. Remember, when you want supper, you cut a piece out, you rinse it, you soak it in a couple changes of water for some hours to pull the salt back out, and then you cook it through like the old folks did, in beans, in greens, in a stew, and you will understand why every cowboy song mentions beans, because salt pork and beans fed the men who built this country, and 4 walkers among them. The third method is the one for days, for fresh meat, and it is the prettiest trick of the 3. My grandfather butchered in the evening on purpose, same as his father taught him. They hung the quarters high in the night air, because even in August the desert night drops cold, and they let that cold soak deep into the meat until dawn. Then at sunup they wrapped it in canvas and the bedroll tarps, a foot of wrapping, and that meat carried the night's cold inside it through the heat of the day like a stone holds the cool of a creek. They were banking the night, every single night, and for the camp meat box they built what some folks called a desert cooler, a crate with screen sides to keep the flies off, a shallow pan of water set on top, and a burlap sack draped over the whole thing with its top edge sitting in the pan so the water wicks down and keeps the cloth wet. Set it in the shade where the breeze moves. The water evaporating off that cloth pulls heat out of the box the same way sweat pulls heat off your neck. and in dry country that box will run 10, 15, even 20 degrees below the air around it all day on nothing. Fresh meat, butter, milk, good for 2 and 3 days instead of hours. Now I will be honest the way I promised. In the damp south, where the air is already full of water, that cooler gives you a gentler drop, a few degrees, and the sun drying my grandfather did will not work at all down there, which is exactly why I gave you the oven. Know your country and use the door that fits it. Now the safety words all together because I will not skip them. These methods are for whole solid cuts of beef and pork only. Never ground meat, not ever, because grinding takes the spoilers that live on the surface and mixes them all the way through where salt and heat cannot promise to reach them. Trim the fat. Use the oven step on your jerky every time. Keep the salt crock cool and the meat buried. And when you open anything, fresh, dried, or cured, you let your nose and your eyes be the judge. And the rule is the one my grandmother said with her hand on her hip: when in doubt, throw it out. No piece of meat on this earth is worth a hospital bed, and a real cowboy is not too proud to feed a questionable piece to the burn barrel. And let me be plain about the limits too, because the title of this video says weeks, and the honest cowboy telling you this says it depends which job. The canvas cooler buys you days, the jar of dried beef buys you weeks, months kept cold, the salt crock buys you months in a cool spot. And your first batch will not be perfect, too salty, too dry, too tough. That is tuition, and it is cheap tuition at $4 a box. My first batch at 12 years old came out like boot soles, and my father ate it anyway and told me what to fix, and that is what I am doing for you now. I am not telling you to unplug your freezer. I am telling you that a man whose family can only eat if a wire stays up is a man standing on one leg, and I am handing you the other leg. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters, and this is the price tag I promised would make you a little angry. Next time you are in the store, walk down the snack aisle and pick up a bag of beef jerky, $8, $9, $10, and turn it over and read the weight, about 3 ounces. Do the arithmetic right there in the aisle. That is $40, $50 a pound. For dried round, the cheap cut, the $4 a pound cut, with the water taken out. They are selling you the cheapest meat in the case at 5 times the price of a ribeye, because somewhere along the way a whole country forgot that drying meat is an afternoon's work with a box of salt and an oven, and a thing forgotten can be sold back at any price the seller likes. A fella from Dallas who hunts the ranch next to mine tried my method last fall on one round roast, called me a week later, and the first thing out of his mouth was not the flavor, it was the math. He said, "Wyatt, I have been paying $50 a pound for a $4 skill. And understand me, I am not telling you there is a villain in this, no meeting in a back room. The cold chain companies, the snack companies, the power company, none of them conspired. It is simpler and almost worse than that. There is steady money in a freezer that hums forever and a $9 bag that empties in a day, and there is no money at all in a box of salt and the night air, so nobody runs a commercial for the salt and the night air, and after 50 years of that quiet, the knowing just faded. It was never hidden, it was outshouted, and the only reason it did not fade in my family is that it was handed down like a saddle, father to son, 5 times in a row, with somebody there each time to make sure it landed. Old Cookie said something to me when I was maybe 20 that I did not understand for another 20 years. We were packing the wagon and I asked him why he fussed so over the salt box when town was only 2 days off. And he looked at me and said, "Son, cold keeps meat the way a jail keeps a man, only as long as the walls hold. Salt and sun change the meat so it does not need keeping." He was talking about meat. And he was not only talking about meat. A thing you can do with your own hands cannot be shut off, cannot be billed, and cannot be taken in a storm, and that is as true of a skill as it is of a steak. My great-great-grandfather did not own much when he came up the trail in 1882, but he owned that, and it has come down to me richer than money would have. So here is what I want you to do this weekend. Buy 1 round roast, 3 pounds or so, and 1 box of plain canning and pickling salt, not iodized, $4. Trim it clean, slice it a 1/4 inch, salt it heavy, pepper it, and give it 5 hours in a 170-degree oven with the door cracked on a spoon. Bend a piece, watch it crack and not snap, jar it, date the lid, and set it on the shelf where you can see it, because every time you walk past that jar you are going to feel something a freezer never gave you, which is that the meat in that jar answers to nobody but you, and that you have joined a line of know-how older than the power company itself. Then tell me in the comments below 2 things. What is sitting in your freezer right now that a 3-day outage would take from you, and which of the 3 are you trying first, the jerky, the salt crock, or the canvas cooler? And tell me whether your country is dry or damp, because that changes my advice and I answer to it. I read every single one. Next time, I am going to show you how the old hands kept eggs fresh for 6 months and more with no fridge at all, using a bucket, water, and one cheap thing from the feed store, the same way ranch wives bank the spring eggs against the winter. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, trim it lean, salt it honest, bank the night, and remember, the old hands who built this country with rope, leather, and their bare hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.